Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. We're live here on ESPN Plus. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Ali Moreno, Stewart Robson. And if Herculez Gomez is with us, it means we're only starting with one thing, and that is, of course, Mexico defeating the US by 2-1 to win the Gold Cup in the final last night. It was the perfect start for Mauricio Pochettino's side. Richard would open the scoring, but then Jimenez would get one back. Mexico from then on were the only team really in it, although the US felt they should have had a penalty in the second half for a handball, but in the end, Alvarez's late goal, which initially was ruled out for offside, but in the end, VAR checked it, he was on, and it's Mexico who win by 2-1. Here's Mauricio Pochettino.
I wanted to tell the truth. The truth was that if that happened in the opposite half, in the another box, for sure it's penalty. Because we cannot talk about the rules. You say, it's silly penalty, silly penalty. It's like plenty of penalties that are so silly. Silly, yes. The player was with the knee on the floor. He pushed the hand over the ball. It's not that the hand was on the floor and the ball touched. Okay, all the excuses now, but that was penalty, and maybe 2-1 for us, and maybe we were celebrating the trophy.
Welcome in, Mario Malchiot as well. We'll be hearing from Mario in a moment. Good old Captain Deflecto. Thank goodness for a handball decision which was dodgy against the US, because if you actually had to talk about this game, it was embarrassing, wasn't it, overall?
Yeah, I mean, he spoke about the fans, he spoke about the handball, but he didn't speak about how just utterly dominated they were by the Mexican national team. There was one team on that field, and that was the Mexican national team. Yeah, they scored in the third minute. That's about as good as it got. Mm-hmm. Because every minute after that, they were chasing shadows. And in fact, they looked quite juvenile at times. You had Diego Luna, Max Arston, not being able to coordinate who was supposed to defend who. On the right-hand side, Freeman. You had Sebastian Berhalter, Tyler Adams, and Luca De La Torre all getting dragged out wide, and massive holes in the middle of the field, and Mexico just doing what they wanted at will. They were very fortunate it wasn't more than 2 goals. Very fortunate Mexico wasn't more productive on the night. I saw a lot of different errors. Tim Ream is one of the most experienced players you have, and he goes in, lunges in with his left foot instead of coming in with the right foot. Gives Raul Jimenez, an experienced player, an angle, a space. He roofs it. He didn't speak about that. He spoke about the handball. Now, we could sit here, Dan, and we could have a discussion on whether the handball law should change. If in the future, that should be different. He clearly palms the ball. What we can't do is sit here and say, under the current law, under the current way it's structured, that should not have been called a penalty. I think it's the direct call. We could sit here and say, well, VAR, if they interpret that Cesar Montes is grabbing on a Tim Ream and that's interfering in some way, but now we're just grabbing on just anything we can. Yeah, so Mauricio Pochettino doesn't say, hey, we were just bad and we were outplayed.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing. It's why I'm quite reluctant to talk about the handball in great detail, because it wasn't the one moment that decided the game. This wasn't a match-defining decision. It was that one team were just so superior to the other, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Mexico, when they had the ball, looked composed. They looked confident. There was good movement. There was good rotation in their play. When the US had the ball, I'm not quite sure what the game plan was. They had a couple of moments where they played it long over the top, which were balls that the goalkeeper should have dealt with and the centre-half should have dealt with, which they got away with, Mexico. But they tried to play out from the back and didn't do it very well on occasions when Mexico were pressing. And when I remember Pochettino as the good manager at Southampton, the good manager at Spurs, maybe not quite so much at PSG and at Chelsea, he was a manager that liked to press the ball. They played with high intensity. This US team was so defensive and in the end became disorganised, even though they were defending with deep. But as you just said, they didn't understand when there was a rotation who should go with which player. It was a really poor performance. And if this is I know they're going to bring other players in. If this is the best they can do, they've got no chance of getting out of the group at the World Cup.
And this is the narrative, isn't it? Yeah, but it wasn't the US's best team, Ali.
Well, that's a choice they made. Mm-hmm. That's a choice that Pochettino made. That's a choice that some of the headlining players in this group also made. Raul Jimenez played a long season in Europe, did he not? Or did I miss something? He did. And yet, there he was, scoring a goal for Mexico in the Gold Cup final, whereas Christian Pulisic, not so much. Edson Alvarez played a long season with West Ham, did he not? Yes, he did. And there he was, scoring the game winner in the Gold Cup, whereas Christian Pulisic, not so much. And I'm only focusing on Pulisic because he's obviously the big headlining name in this team that wasn't here. But again, this is a choice that Mauricio Pochettino made. And yet it is Mauricio Pochettino that is telling us and reminding us that this was the last opportunity for a game that had pressure on it, for a game that mattered, that wasn't a friendly ahead of the World Cup, and yet you're playing it with guys that most of them will not feature. It's an issue that I have had with this selection process for a while now. I've mentioned it time and time again, and I'll continue to mention it. You win or you lose the Gold Cup, what did you gain if you're Mauricio Pochettino? What did you answer for your team? What are some of the useful answers that you got out of this tournament? Not a whole lot. Because you don't know exactly what your team is going to be, given the fact that these are not going to be the players. We've had conversations about Diego Luna and how good he has been in this tournament. And while, yes, he has been outstanding for the group, is he really going to feature in the World Cup? Is he really going to be a starter? And we saw yesterday in a match in which the United States were dominated, how his role changed dramatically. In the preview to this match, we said, well, what is Diego Luna going to do for this team in the final? Well, it's difficult to figure out because they're not going to have the ball. And so therefore, he's going to have to spend a whole lot of time defending. We saw that, which then meant that he was no longer effective in the attacking half. This is one of many questions that were not answered. And even if you had gotten those answers from these players will not feature next summer. They'll only feature as squad players, depth players, but not the feature players. And so therefore, what did you gain from this tournament? Not a whole lot.
Mario, your thoughts?
No, I mean, you guys already highlighted. For me, it was the tempo, when Mexico kicked off, they set off straight away. They start pressing. From the first minute, they were there and they were so focused and so, set in their ways of saying, like, we're really going to make it hard for you guys to come out of the back. I know they wanted to play at the back because they tried to dribble out from the back. But the problem was also, what I also saw is that sometimes when football games are played, especially when it comes to final, you got to set the tone. And when I saw the second half, a tackle of Adams, it was like, after 20 minutes or something, he set a tone, he tackled, I think it was Alvarez, but it took too long. If you wanna set a tone, and Alvarez is definitely one of the ones that you can set the tone against because he sets the tone for his country. So if you want to do something, you got to do it in the beginning of the game, because in the beginning of the game, the ref doesn't book you really quickly. So you got to set the tone. They didn't do that. They turned up, and in a way, you kind of got you got pushed around in the game. And I know what Pochettino said, because he highlighted the handball, and he said that, but his team was not performing the way they should perform. So even if he would have gotten the handball, it still would have been a hard game for him, because the only moments that he got in the game was either a free kick or if Mexico dropped off. Especially at the end they did that, and after they scored the first goal. But after that it was like, no, I was watching a game and thinking, like, is Mexico just really bullying them?
It's also about the standards that you set as a manager. Javier Aguirre in the press conference ahead of the final was asked, hey, look, if some of these guys get a yellow card or red, now if they get a red card in this final, then there was conversation that they would be suspended for the first game in the World Cup. So what happens? Right. Like, have you had conversations with your players about this? And his response, in a very honest way, said, we don't know what players are going to be in the World Cup. It's a message to the players. You have to earn your way to play in the World Cup. We are a year away from that. I cannot be making decisions a year ahead and project as to what this team is going to be. They have to earn it. Whereas in the case of Mauricio Pochettino, you've already told players that they're going to be part of the World Cup, and that they're going to feature, and that they're going to be starters, and that they're going to be essentially the flag bearers for this group. You're setting a standard in Javier Aguirre in which he's saying this Gold Cup is the most important tournament in the now. Whereas Mauricio Pochettino is saying, this World Cup is an evaluation process, the World Cup. And that's a year from now. It's different standards.
And this is the last competitive game they have until the opening round of matches in the World Cup. Yes?
Yes, but competitive. You ended up playing in this tournament, Trinidad and Tobago.
No, but what I'm saying
Haiti.
is this game in particular.
Yeah.
Brilliant atmosphere, hostile crowd.
Correct.
This is exactly what you want to see. You want to test your players.
But I'll go back to what Ali said. Who are you testing them with? 15 of the 26 are Major League Soccer players receiving their first caps. Literally all those players.
So this has
5
been
appearances.
a complete and utter waste of time.
Utter waste. Maybe he found out that a year's time from now, Tim Ream can't be the center back partner for Chris Richards. Maybe he figured out Tyler Adams needs somebody to help him in the midfield. Maybe he figured out, I really don't know who my 9 is.
So what we're doing is rolling the dice and hoping those players.
Well, that's not what we're doing. That's what U.S. Soccer has done.